If you search up book recommendations for sci-fi or for any situation, there's a good chance you might have heard of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This book is everywhere, especially on Reddit. They seem to love recommending this book at any opportunity they get. But in my case, recently on a flight, I decided to search up best short books to read on a flight, and there it was again. So I finally decided to give it a chance, and I'm glad I did because it was a great book. So we're going to get into all that here shortly. So if you guys don't already know, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a book by Douglas Adams. It's also a movie, a radio show, a comic, a stage show, an adventure game, and also the first book to a 6-part series. But for the sake of this video, I'll just be focusing on mostly the first book in the series, and I'll also touch on the movie near the end. The story actually started off as a radio comedy, and Douglas Adams was commemorated into the Radio Academy's Hall of Fame for his contributions to the genre, so I'm sure it was very popular back in the day, but now radio comedies is kind of like a defunct form of media. In 1979, Adams adapted the first 4 parts of this radio comedy into the first book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it sold 250,000 copies in the first 3 months. Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 92 million miles is an utterly insignificant little blue-green planet whose ape-descended life forms are so amazingly primitive that they still think digital watches are a pretty neat idea.
This planet has, or rather had, a problem, which was this. Most of the people living on it were unhappy for pretty much of the time. Many solutions were suggested for this problem, but most of these were largely concerned with the movements of small green pieces of paper, which is odd because on the whole it wasn't the small green pieces of paper that were unhappy. And so the problem remained. Lots of the people were mean, and most of them were miserable, even the ones with digital watches.
It's a story about Arthur Dent, whose house is about to be bulldozed for a planned road bypass. And as he's lying in front of these bulldozers, hoping that they'll just stop, his friend Ford Prefect arrives and tells him that they should probably head to the pub because for what he's about to explain to him, he's probably going to need a couple of drinks. Ford is an alien and a researcher for The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, an encyclopedia on everything in the universe. And also the Earth is about to be destroyed by a Vogon destroyer ship, and they need to escape. And as Earth is being destroyed, they hitch a ride onto that same destroyer. Now, just from this opening, you get to learn a lot about the kind of universe and world Douglas Adams is trying to build. There's one example that happens shortly after this that really highlights this, and this is when Arthur is on the Vogon destroyer ship, and of course he's processing everything that just happened. Is he might be the last man alive. So his friend Ford Prefect, the alien, gives him The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the aforementioned encyclopedia on everything in the universe, and all that is written for Earth is 2 words: mostly harmless. And as I was reading the beginning of this book, I was really wondering what type of direction this book would take. And recently I saw Dune 2, and that's kind of more what I'm used to. Grand space warfare, crazy technology, aliens. And yes, this book has all of that as well, but the real key point to this book is Arthur Dent. He's just he's an everyman. Throughout the entire movie, he's just wearing a bathrobe. You know, he's the everyman. You can put yourself in his shoes, and it's a different type of fun to read someone like that in a sci-fi book because you get to experience the universe with him. You know, in most sci-fis that I've read personally, it's kind of like the main character or protagonist is already used to everything that he sees. But in this book, it's kind of like an isekai. If you ever watched the isekai anime. And the second part of this book I want to touch on is the humor and the philosophy. Like I said, this book is a science fiction comedy, so the comedy is a big part of this book. It's everywhere, and one of my favorite characters when it comes to the comedy is Marvin. And Marvin is a spaceship robot companion. You can think RDD2 or TARS from Interstellar, but Marvin has the brain the size of a planet, and he's 50,000 times more intelligent than a human. But on top of this, he's actually a failed prototype for the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation Genuine People Personalities Technology. And because of this, he has severe depression. Between being a super intelligent companion and having severe depression, he's constantly reminding their crew of like all the distakes for every task he's given, right? So it's kind of a interesting character there. So Marvin, I think, covers the humor side, but the other side of this book that I want to cover is the philosophy, right? And I think the character that really describes the philosophy in this book is Deep Thought. Deep Thought is the way that the book tackles huge philosophical ideas and themes that are so vital to this book. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is also seen as a philosophy book in a way to view the universe, right? The big question that Deep Thought, the supercomputer, is programmed to answer is, what is the meaning to the universe, right? And we'll get to the answer, but as I was researching this video, I came across this odd YouTube channel called My Idol Elon. And I come to find out that The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is Elon Musk's favorite book.
What do you think is the meaning of this whole thing?
I think what Douglas Adams was saying in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is that the universe is the answer, and what we really need to figure out are what questions to ask about the answer that is the universe.
Yeah.
And that the question is really the hard part. And if you can properly frame the question, then the answer, relatively speaking, is easy. So
I think Elon Musk captured the idea of deep thought pretty well, right? I love the idea of putting emphasis on the question over the answer. Knowing the answer to the universe might be interesting, but what does that really mean for you, right? What will you do with this knowledge? Are you looking for inner peace? Are you looking to get as rich as possible? Questioning why we ask certain questions tells us a lot about ourselves and our desires. And forging great questions can help you more than searching for alternate answers. And I also want you guys to remember that all of these questions and deeper meanings is shrouded in so much comedy that you find yourself forgetting about trying to find some deeper meaning in this book. And that says, and I think that also says something about what Adams was trying to do with this book by making it a fun time over everything else. So now for thoughts on the movie, I have a couple of points here. The humor was hard to adapt, right? There's a lot of humor in the book that didn't really translate well to the movie, but there was a lot that did as well. But another point I have was the acting was good. I really liked, what's his name? Yeah, I really liked the cast. Martin Freeman did a great job. Zoe Deschanel and Mos Def. I really liked the synergy between those three characters. For Zafad, Sam Rockwell, he was pretty good too, but I really liked Martin Freeman, Mos Def, and Zoe Deschanel. Another thing I wrote down was The Revenge of the Sith, right? So The Revenge of the Sith was the biggest movie that came out in 2005, and it was another huge sci-fi movie, and I just wanted to point that out, that because The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was just doing something completely different to what The Revenge of the Sith was trying to capture, right? The Revenge of the Sith was capturing so much different ideas and whole different worldview to sci-fi, but I think that was an interesting little tidbit. Another thing I wrote down was that the Magrathea scene was beautiful. I want you guys to see that as well, but I don't want to spoil too much on that. But overall, the acting was good. The comedy didn't land in the same way for me, but I think the story beats were mostly the same. Overall, it was an enjoyable movie. So that's pretty much it. I hope I will come back to the series in the future. It was really enjoyable and it left on a cliffhanger. So I definitely see myself coming back to this series in the future just to really wrap it up and see what direction it takes. I mostly found myself reading classic books because as a new reader, I started really reading deeply in 2022. And I feel myself kind of obligated to read all the classics, right? But I didn't feel that with reading this book. I'm not sure if it's considered a classic, but I just see it recommended often, and I feel like it's on everybody's list, right? But it's a smooth read because there's a lot of comedy that gives you breaks, and it gives you a lot of time to really ponder the big ideas. But it was a hard read, yes, but the comedy really pulls you through. So yeah, I really want you guys to read this book because if you're anything like me, you're looking for a book with answers, maybe. You know, sometimes you might read a book for fun, but a lot of the books you read are for answers. What do I do? But you're looking for a book that might change you in some way. And I think this book will do that, but it will also take you on a fun journey along the way and also teach you the big lesson that the questions are probably more important than the answer, right? And it is one of the first comedies that I've read as well. So I think if you guys haven't read a comedy yet, give it a chance. And beyond that, this book is just one of a kind, right? So thank you for watching.